You're listening to Be Informed, D&B, brought to you by the outstanding Marshall Heights Community Development Organization. Thank you so much for listening. And Kate, I understand you have a guest with you.
Yes, I do. And you see how excited I am to introduce this brother.
I see.
Yeah, but see, I gotta, whenever time I see this brother, there's always something new. So he's an author now. So trust and believe, I'm introducing you. Most people know him, but author Timon Freeman. Big brother, are you with us?
Peace and blessings.
How are you, brother?
I'm enjoying the revolution. Hope you're doing the same.
Oh, brother, yes. And it's good to put the word author in front of your name.
Feels good. Feels good.
And you earned it. So for those few people who's listening, who don't know who you are and the impact, I mean, I can go on from the WEAC radio, I can go on to all of the revolutionary movements that you've been part of, even launching the Black Love Festival and literally turning that festival into just an affair that brings the whole family together. Brother, can you give us a little bit more insight before we go into this amazing book, who you are now, because you have transformed yourself so many ways?
But first, let me give some flowers to this brother Gerard Carmichael last night in the Golden Globes. If everybody have not seen that, go check his monologue out. The brother is personification of Black liberation. I just want to give him his flowers. Gerard Carmichael, very inspirational.
Thank you, brother.
To summarize my life in the opening. Oh, that's crazy. So
say, be bigger, brother. Be bigger.
I'm just a young brother from D.C. that got fired from the post office making anti-war statements because I remember my great-grandfather, he came on his porch one day and it was a gentleman from some utility company. I'm a small child. I don't really know if it's gas company, phone company, or whatever. And he came on my great-grandfather's porch in North Carolina. And he wasn't disrespectful to my grandfather at all. He was calling him Mr. Lewis this, Mr. Lewis that. But my great-grandfather, 6'5", was conditioned on how to speak to a white man, even on his porch. So he was talking to him like, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir. And even as a child, I knew something was wrong. I had never heard this man speak like this. And I knew that he was much older than the white gentleman that he was talking to. So I knew something was wrong. It wasn't until I reached adulthood that I realized that my great-grandfather and so many of our people have been conditioned on how to speak, conditioned on how to act, move, talk, think, and all of that. So my life has been dedicated to dismantling the institutional white supremacy by asserting myself with confidence and a love affair with the brutal truth. I think that summarizes my life.
Yes, brother, and excellence. And you have been able to use intelligence in a way that uplift not just yourself, but to others. So why don't you give me a little bit more, dive in a little, before we go into the book. Let's talk about this radio platform that you founded. I think it's over 11, almost, how many years now?
Yeah, it's 11 years. 11 years this past November. WEAC Radio. We're DC's independent, revolutionary, legal pirate radio station, brick and mortar studio on the radical side of Monarchy Avenue in the heart of Anacostia. And we have been holding the line down against gentrification, displacement east of the river. And we're proud of that accomplishment. And we continue to move as an anchor institution in Washington, D.C.
Now, Beverly, I know you have some questions, and I know I do too, but I want to dive into this book. I wanted people to understand he continues to be actively making things happen, but he found time to carve out such a novel that intertwines water, life, and the existence of love. Brother, introduce this book and tell us a little bit more about it, because you're about to do your first book reading on the 16th of January, which is right around the corner. At Sankofa, which is on Georgia Avenue from 4 to 6 p.m. Kind of give us some insight about this book, brother.
Yes, I hope your listeners will join us on MLK Day at Sankofa, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I don't want to take credit for finding the time. I want to take credit for utilizing the time, because if it hadn't been for the pandemic, I most likely wouldn't have finished this book by this time. Let me share a quote from someone. His name is Milton Friedman. He's not a friend of the progressive community at all, but even a broke clock is right 2 times a day briefly. He had this to say. He said, only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are laying around. That, I believe, is our basic function, to develop alternatives to existing policies to keep them alive and available until the politically impossible becomes the politically inevitable. And so that's the kind of like the mantra right now, because if the pandemic has taught us anything, it has shown us just how quickly things can change. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to be prepared for the next wave of change. And one of those changes is water. As we like to say, water. Put some stamp on it and some value to it, because we have taken it for granted for far too long. It's often been said that, the greatest trick is the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Well, I think the same could be said about water. They had convinced us that it's not important, it's not something we need to think about. But ask the 25,000 people that die every day in Asia, Africa, and Latin America about water. Ask the water protectors and at the Dakota's access pipeline, water protectors. Ask the people in Flint, Michigan. Ask the people in Jackson, Mississippi, and the list goes on and on. You don't think about it until it affects you. And we don't even have to even go into the activism part of the water. Just think about our own personal experiences. We're all old enough to remember when we was children, and we was 10 years old, and somebody asked us to buy water, to pay for a bottle of water. We would look at them like they was crazy. But we have allowed these changes to occur without being aware and resistant to them. And I'm always going to honor my ancestors. So my grandmother told me when I was a child that they was going to sell water one day. And I told that lady she was crazy. It turned out she was a visionary, because she was saying that when they took down the water fountains in this country, which was a symbolism of the American apartheid system, when they took down those signs, she said they was going to make us pay for it, and we've been paying for water ever since.
Yes, we have. And now when I look at the cover of this book, it is so intriguing. When I turn it sideways, I see the world. So what you're talking about, this book literally impacts the world. But I also see the silhouette of, I think, one of our sisters, who's also the light. Light comes through our women. So can you give us some insight, the cover and beyond the cover, of these words you put together to uplift how we think about water?
Well, I'm glad you peeped that, because that was definitely a work of art. Had a wonderful artist working with me on that. And people can get more information at NinevehNovel.com. That's NinevehNovel.com. Nineveh spelled Nineveh, Nineveh, novel.com. And so what you have just described is the book cover. And yeah, she's looking at the world sideways. That's what that is about. And her silhouette is covering Europe and North America, i.e. the West, the colonizers, the enslavers, the ones that have polluted the planet and dominated the world, has commodified every living resources, including water. And the global south is the only thing that's visible, but you will see that is in red, because there's a lot of blood going to be spilled in order for the global south to rise. It's just like a lot of blood was spilled for Europe and the West to rise. And we haven't really wrestled with what dismantling white supremacy really looks like. And this is a fantastic novel that tells a story to bring attention to the water crisis. This is a novel. It's reality fiction. Reality fiction means that artists use lies to tell the truth, where others use the truth to hide and tell lies. So for those who have seen the great film Judas and the Black Messiah, the director Shaka King, the Oscar-winning film Judas and the Black Messiah, mind you, that talks about the FBI's infiltration and assassination of Chairman Fred Hampton in Chicago. He wrote a beautiful blurb for this book, because I'm so honored to have his name on it. And this is what he had to say about the work. He said, "This is its great utility to escape his art, but this novel threads the needle pretty damn well by refusing to not acknowledge trauma just to make a piece of entertainment." That's Shaka King. And so this story is about. I know your previous guest was coming down on the weed, but I think there's a time and place for everything, and all things in moderation. Shout out to all the rosters out there. But I've been saying that this is kind of like Octavia Butler off the loud, because this novel starts with black people in the future, afrofuturism. Water has been priced beyond affordability of the masses, forced to collect rainwater, which is constituting a new contraband. So think of how the drug war has been applied to black people and applied illicit possession of rainwater in the same fashion. It's run the polar caps has melted, climate change tipping point has been surpassed. So the sensation levels of the oceans have risen. So some cities have been submerged, some new cities have emerged, just like Dubai was built out of the ocean. And in this new world, we have to deal with the fact that water has become the conflict resource, and it's ran by, again, the Global Water Corporation, and it tells the story of two families. There's one father and his son that runs the Global Water Corporation. There's one father and his daughter who leads the resistance, and the loss of the matriarchs of those families are driving those children to come to blows, and we really see the ultimate clash between the haves and the have-nots.
Now, Arthur Freeman, you got my attention. Our listeners always listen to the show with pencil and paper, and I purposely called you by your last name because I want us to start realizing that, you're not just starting this. You've been doing this for years. So you are well seasoned at what you have been empowering our community with. How do we get this book in our hands? How do we get copies? How do we pre-order?
Yes, so Martin King Day at Sankofa Video and Bookstore. We're kicking off the pre-order launch. We're doing an entire citywide tour. Every bookstore that will have us, but we're starting with busboards and pours, every location. So on MLK Day, if you're not able to join us at Sankofa at 4 to 6 p.m., it will be live streamed. You can go to React Radio Facebook page for that live stream. But if you can, please join us, because it's going to be an in-depth book talk. I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman. She's from the Hurston Wright Foundation. We just acknowledged Zora Neale Hurston's birthday just the other day, so shout out to her legacy. But Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman is Executive Director of the Hurston Wright Foundation, who will be involved with a discussion with me on the intricacies of this book and what has gone into it and where we go from here, because there will be a national tour on World Water Day, which is March the 22nd, and that will kick off at busboards in Anacostia, and then we'll be embarking upon a 13-city tour that includes Jackson, Mississippi, and also Flint, Michigan. And check this out, brother. Have you ever heard Barack Obama cough during a speech in his entire career?
No, because Brother Smooth. Tell us what the thought behind that. But actually, you know what?
Okay,
hold that thought. Because I want everyone to know you're listening to Be Informed DNV. Beverly, I know you're taking notes, right? Because I am.
I'm taking notes. Yes, I am.
I want you to hold that thought, brother, because we're going to take a quick break. And after the break, we're going to come back. And I want to encourage people to not only pre-order, but I want you to come out. But I want you to start going to wherever you buy your books online and asking for this book by name. I also want you to know that there is a way that you can connect to him on social media. And I want us to know that when we begin to tell the truth together, that amplification of the truth impacts us and it impacts the whole world. So you can be a part of this. And I want you to stay tuned, because we're going to come right back and share some more information coming straight to Brother Arthur Timon Freeman, my brother. Stay tuned. You're listening to Be Informed DMV.
1450 WOL.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Be Informed DNB, brought to you by the Marshall Heights Community Development Organization. And we have the pleasure to be speaking with Mr. Timon Freeman, who has this book that's coming out, Nineveh, A Conflict Over Water. Mr. Freeman, can you tell us, what do you want us to feel or to do after reading your book?
Well, first, I want people to realize that water is life. And we should not take it for granted. Before we went to break, I was pointing out a little known fact is that if you have never heard former President Barack Obama cough in a speech, you should go watch his Flint Water, Michigan speech. When he went to Flint, Michigan, Barack Obama coughed 18 times and asked for a glass of water twice. And when they finally brought, not a bottle of water, in the midst of a water crisis, they bring him a glass of water and he takes one sip and he swears it wasn't political theater. And I say that to say this, is that no one has been brought to justice in what happened in Flint, Michigan. There's no charges been in Jackson, Mississippi. And we need to understand that the commodification of a resource such as water should not be acceptable. And so I want them to walk away from an awareness that this is a crisis that's impending. And as I said earlier before, the pandemic should have taught us that how quickly things can change. In fact, George W. Bush bought land in South America, which sits on one of the largest aquifers on the planet. Aquifers are underground fresh body of water. And when the crisis presents itself, he's going to stick a straw in the ground and suck it dry and sell it at the highest price available, because that is what capitalism does. And we need to understand that we are living in a drastic time. And Martin Luther King's last book was, Chaos or Community. Where do we go from here? Well, there's nothing more precious than water, and as we like to say, water. And if I may, I have an excerpt from the book I wanted to share with you guys and your listening audience.
Please do.
One of the characters,
Please do.
His name is thank you. His name is Sasir, and he's the son of Nimrod, the head of the Global Water Corporation. And this is what Sasir had to say about monsters. He said, "When I was a child, I dreamed of monsters. Usually it was my mother that rushed to my room when she heard my screams to console and comfort me. But one night, my father came. He didn't console or comfort me. He asked me what scared me and what kind of monster it was. He said that the fear of zombies means the fear of the masses. He said fear of vampires means the fear of the elite. I told him I didn't know what kind of monster it was because I always wake up when it grabs me. He then told me that monsters do exist, but they are too big to fit under my bed and far too few in number to be truly dangerous. More dangerous are the functionaries ready to believe and to act without asking questions. You, sir, are one of those real-life monsters." And so I say that to say this, is that we're living with real-life monsters right now. The police is acting like monsters. We have a crime rate that's acting like monsters. We have people who are polluting the environment, destroying the planet. It'd be right before our eyes. They are monsters. The U.S. military is killing people insanely. Is monsters, and we have a monstrosity.
There's a difference of believing you're right and being right. And you are now giving us an opportunity to be on the right side. For those persons who want to connect, not only read the book, but be like you, actively living and putting what we learned through our activism to work. How do we connect with you again? Is there social media? Is there an opportunity to walk beside you?
Yes. Again, the website is NinevehNovel.com. Nineveh, Nineveh, novel.com. We are dropping on Martin Luther King Day, a pre-sale event at Sankofa Video and Bookstore. You can go to sankofa.com for RSVP for that event. We'll also be live streaming on the We Act Radio Facebook page. And I wanted to say this, is that, if hopefully many of your listeners have seen Black Panther 2, which I think is better than Black Panther 1, because Black Panther 1 glorified the CIA. Black Panther 2 exposed the CIA. But it was about water. If you watch Avatar, it's about water. And so what we have to know is that Hollywood is always dropping jewels and letting you know what's to come. They basically priming your mind so it'd be more acceptable when it happens. You go back and count how many pandemic movies came out before the pandemic hit. So I'm kind of like feeling like I'm Paul Revere, the town crier, leading the charge here to let people know that a water crisis is coming, and we need to prepare ourselves for that and not be caught off guard like the last time.
Now, I also, in the silhouette of this young lady on your book, I also believe I see a gun. So this is, am I correct in that, or that's my imagination?
No, that is not a signal of your imagination. That's reality, because there can't be no struggle. There can't be no progress without struggle. And Frederick Douglass said that, you know. And you know, the beautiful legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer, who says she kept a shotgun in every corner of her house, and any cracker step on her porch, she's gonna send him to Jesus. So
there it is.
You know, we need to realize that we have a right to exist, and we have a right to defend ourselves. And if these people are actually profiting off of our demise and loss of life, then we need to rise to the occasion and face the challenge.
And I love the way you said that, brother. From the cover to the final word of the book, you will be amazed. Like the sister, we must defend ourselves, but we must arm ourselves with the information to properly defend ourselves from so many of the monsters that we know exist. We cannot no longer be children and close our eyes and act like everything is not going to, quote unquote, get better, but we can make it better when we come together. So this is your opportunity to not only read an amazing book, but to actually be a part of a community that's making the world a better place. Brother, you're a family. I want to thank you so much for coming on, and ask that you be prepared to come back, because I want to, hear about the thousands of people who purchased this book all across the country, making it millions sell. We want to make it a bestseller. But I also want to encourage people to know that when we activate our power, you're never alone. Brother, you get the last word?
Sir. Yes, sir. And I just want to say that you one of the day ones, and I'm honored to be here on your program. This is only the second radio we've done, and this project is destined to become a bestseller. It's destined to become a film, and I'm going to be on a stage somewhere accepting an award, acknowledging you for being a day one and supporting this in its inception. So thank you, and I hope everyone can join us on MLK Day at Sankofa Video and Bookstore at 4 p.m.
Thank you so much, big brother. Beverly?
Peace and blessings.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, Beverly.
Okay.
The nation's capital has produced so many amazing individuals because of the type of roots that we have in this city. We have organizations like the Marshallized Community Development Organization, REACT Radio, DMV Black Restaurant Week, as well as the Greater Washington Urban League. But we want you to know more about the other people that are out there doing amazing work.